Is your faith in God forged deep into you? Do you feel the mighty guiding your path? Joshua 1:9 calls us to face every challenge boldly, like hot metal needs to be forged to create purpose. Trusting God's presence is always with us to strengthen and empower. If faith is forged well, it overcomes fear, even when life is uncertain. Before we dive into the video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for regular biblical insights and strength for your journey. Now let's head to 1400 BC. In ancient Israel, hearts trembled on the eastern banks of the Jordan River, poised between promise and fear. Moses had passed. Joshua rose to lead them into a land flowing with promise and danger. God's charge thundered across time, "Be strong and courageous, for I am with you always." Fear pressed heavy. The Jordan raged, a barrier between frail hearts and promised hope. Joshua rose, forged in fire of trials, called now to lead where Moses had gone no further. The ark led the way. Waters parted, earth dried, as courage stepped where fear had drowned. On Gilgal's stones, God's command burned bright. Strength and courage, eternal covenant sealed. That night, courage was hammered in hearts, like fire striking iron, reshaping fear into faith. At Gilgal, the covenant renewed. Faith's fire rekindled, every heart set ablaze with courage. Before Jericho's walls, courage stood tall, no longer trembling but burning with God's fire. This is the command: be strong and courageous, a voice forged into eternity. Be strong, not in your own strength, but in the fire God Himself kindles. Be of good courage, not bravado, but steady fire tempered in obedience. Be not afraid. Fear dissolves when God's presence burns brighter than the threat. Neither be dismayed. God's plan unfolds, though eyes see only obstacles. For the Lord your God is with you, the foundation of all courage forever. Every strike of the hammer declared, courage is born when fear bows to faith. Be strong and courageous, command and promise hammered into eternity. Just like an ancient forge was a place of intense heat and transformation, the forge of faith glowed. Every trial became fire shaping iron into courage. Every strike was purposeful. God's trials shape character, never destroy hope. Joshua read God's law aloud, each word a strike, embedding courage into trembling hearts. The assembly stood united, eyes fixed on Joshua as God's promise kindled resolve. Before them towered Jericho's ramparts, barriers daring their fragile faith. At dawn, priests raised trumpets, heralds announcing power to topple stone. Walls of pride met silence. Faith marched stronger than weapons. On the seventh day, silence broke. Trumpets thundered, earth shook. Stone fell like sand. Faith toppled what seemed unbreakable. Silence followed thunder. Where walls lay broken, faith stood tall. To Israel's first hearers, courage was no metaphor. It meant survival in hostile lands. For the people back then, daily life meant toil, plowing fields, baking bread, raising flocks to survive. Faith was forged not only in battle but in the hearths of homes. A large number of travelers crossed roads of trade, Egyptian, Hittite, Canaanite alike. Local markets bustled with life. The local faith collided with foreign gods and goods. At night, stories were told. Memory forged courage in the glow of fire. Children asked of the stones. Fathers answered with stories of God's faithfulness. Intense, mothers whispered psalms, weaving courage and faith into restless children. Farmers prayed for rain, knowing survival depended on heaven's mercy. Life back then was fragile, and courage was not a luxury but breath itself. Every harvest remembered Sinai's manna, God's hand always supplying, shaping courage in plenty and want. As seasons turned, Israel thrived, each cycle a new forge of faith under God's watchful eye. When doubts surfaced, leaders turned to God's promise, finding clarity amid life's greatest uncertainties. Communities thrived as faith forged connections. God's presence bound them in unshakable unity. Even in exile, the promise endured. God's presence was their lamp in the loneliest of nights. Returning home, they rebuilt walls, every stone laid in faith, not fear, as God marched before them. Joshua's legacy echoed in every gate reopened, courage begetting courage through generations. Gentle rain fell upon new walls, sign of God's blessing washing away fear, cultivating fresh courage. Every tool, every craft became a parable, faith forged in fire, sharpened through trial. Through tools and stone, God's people built not just homes, but hearts of courage for generations. Children recited Joshua's command, instilling courage early, weaving the promise into youthful hearts. Stories of conquest passed through firelight, Joshua's courage retold to strengthen each generation. Each retelling was reminder, courage wasn't just for Joshua, but for all who walked the path of faith. Prayer circles formed at dawn, intercession fueling courage for the unknown battles ahead. Messengers rode at breakneck pace, bearing hope stamped with God's unwavering promise. Counselors gathered around Joshua, his faith the anchor that steadied every wavering heart. They studied the law by torchlight, obedience the foundation of every courageous step. Each decree memorized by heart, faithful living demanded unwavering courage in every command. From courtroom to battlefield, every decree propelled them forward with resolute trust. Joshua's life itself became the testimony, strength rooted not in him, but in God's faithful word. Even in peace, they built altars, remembering every step of courage as God led on. Their stories became songs, testimonies of courage sustained by God's constant presence. Believers built sanctuaries, each stone echoing the promise, every arch proclaiming his nearness. Festivals drew crowds, dancing under banners that proclaimed God's steadfast courage to all. In quiet mornings, priests studied the scroll. God's law readied their hearts for unseen fights. Invaders challenged their peace, yet hearts rooted in promise stood firm as mountaintops. Through trials, their courage shone, God's faithfulness a fire unquenched by fear. Joshua's victories became memorials, each stone a witness, every scar a testimony. Courage wasn't absence of fear, it was trust, walking forward when fear still whispered loud. Joshua's life etched courage into Israel's soul, a legacy shining beyond his own years. Generations carried Joshua's charge, speaking courage in the face of their own giants. Even kings echoed his words, leaders reminding Israel their strength lay not in thrones but in God. Prophets reminded the people, when fear rose, courage was still found in God's unchanging word. Through exile and return, the same call endured, courage to rebuild, courage to remain faithful. In synagogues across the land, Joshua's words were recited, faith anchored by courage in God's law. When Christ came, he too declared, "Be of good courage, for I have overcome the world." From Joshua to Jesus, the command echoed, courage found in God's presence, never in our own strength. Fast forward to today, that same promise reaches us, calling our own hearts to courage in every generation. Imagine losing your job, the security you built over years suddenly gone. Fear whispers, "You're not enough." Yet Joshua's command remains, "Be strong, be courageous, for God is with you in the uncertainty." Or, imagine sickness striking, the diagnosis you never expected, turning life upside down. But even in your weakness, His presence speaks, strength beyond the failing body, courage beyond the pain. When your heart broken, the person you trusted most, walking away, leaving only silence and pain behind. Into that silence, Joshua's words whispers, "Be strong, be courageous. You are never abandoned," erasing the pain and mending your heart. Some battles are unseen, like the anxiety in your mind, storms no one else around you notices. But reading scripture steadies the mind. Be strong, be courageous, even here, even now. Whatever the valley, career, sickness, heartbreak, or hidden battles, the same God always walks with you. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. From 1400 BC to today, binding the threads, history, author, and promise, one voice calling generations to courage. Joshua's burden was heavy. His courage grew not from valor, but from a promise he could not forget. The verse travels Through Joshua, to prophets, to Christ, unity of promise across time and covenant. So we stand, past and present braided together, his promise our steady companion into every valley. Every verse carried forward, an inheritance not locked in the past but alive in each believer. Their anthem rose at dawn, repeating, "Be strong and courageous," a song echoing God's faithful heart. They stood on future's edge, fueled by promise, ready for all tomorrow might hold. Ready for every challenge, they trusted God's hand as their unshakable foundation. They breathed new life into ancient words, proof courage never grows old in God's sight. In every hearth, the promise was stoked, flames of courage kept burning through dark nights. Their fields bore witness, faith planted, harvest reaped in courage through every trial. Generations gathered, passing verse to children, planting courage deep in memory's soil. Every trial forged them, hammered by fire, yet shining stronger in God's hand. From Gilgal to today, the promise remains, strength not in us, but in him who walks with us. This is not history only, it is your promise, for today, for the road ahead. Join us, walk with courage amongst the masses. Subscribe to the channel, help us to spread the gospel, and stand in faith's fellowship. Joshua 1:9 encourages courage and strength in the face of challenges. Our struggles can be viewed as tests of trust and commitment, like the welder trusts in his wielding hammer to craft the final product. This resilience is essential for overcoming daily obstacles and to grow in faith amongst today's unbelievers. God's faithfulness is a constant presence. The forge represents a set of experiences and opportunities. Challenges are often perceived as punishments or setbacks. We ought to see them as an opportunity to grow and change our mindset. Give a thumbs up if this video supported your journey in faith. If you've not already done so, subscribe to the channel. Joshua 1:9. Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of a good courage, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord thy God is with thee whithersoever thou goest. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with someone who needs to hear the gospel. Amen, and God bless you.